Aloha, everyone. Jeremy Vaeni yet again. Our Undoing Radio is the program you are listening to, and I am going to deprogram you. Okay, probably not. Probably what I'm going to do is ask for donations at www.ko-fi.com/jve, which is ko-fi, probably pronounced coffee, ko-fi.com/JAYVAY. If you have extra money lying around that you don't need, I'll take it. That's the whole of the pitch. Now, we're going to continue on here with discussing issues that came up during my brief stint talking to Tom Chetham's people. Tom Chetham is a scientist, or I guess retired scientist, who studied and specialized in, that's right, the flea penis. The penis of a flea. And now he's tackling Urgency by Jeremy Vaeni. So it really is a logical path when you think about it. But I guess he made his name in another way by talking about the philosopher Henry Corbin and others. I mean, but I guess specifically Henry Corbin, who talks about the imaginal, and I guess we'll probably end up touching on that in some way during one of these episodes. I don't know, but the notion of the imaginal. But anyway, so he's he's an author and a scientist and an all-around decent guy, and he let me sit in with his class and talk to them about my work. And there was one guy who spoke up and was nervous and was saying, "Hey, I read my other book, Aliens: The First and Final Disclosure," and it made him feel claustrophobic in a way, and it made him feel as though I sort of, as he said, owned his face, which means I was calling him out. He heard him in my words, and he realized, uh-oh, there's a problem here. And it had to do with that he sees the world metaphorically, which, and sees synchronicities, it sounds like, just about around every corner. And when they happen to other people, he can tell. It's much easier to tell when they're kind of not really synchronicities. It's just sort of like narcissism or mistaken identity or something, but it's harder to tell with him because they're full of meaning for him, right? But he was feeling called out in that, is there a sense of hiding there, of feeling as though you're on the right path, or perhaps even a righteous path, who knows, when the stars do align, when you do find meaning for you in events in the world, in things that people say, in stuff that lines up in a way that makes sense to you. But I mean, if you see the world primarily metaphorically, if you just see metaphors everywhere, I imagine it would be easier to see synchronicities everywhere, right? Because then everything is sort of speaking that language of not the literal event being important, but what does it mean to you in the context of other things that have happened to you, or whatever's been on your mind lately, or, however it is that there is a synchronicity involved. And synchronicities are an odd thing because they're easy to, well, I guess it's the same with all of this. I was going to say it's easy to mix up, like, just like what's narcissistic, like what is, I believe the world revolves around me and everything is speaking to me, versus it actually is. But you could say that about any of this spiritual stuff, right? You could say that about alien abduction. I mean, there is something about this, any phenomena in the world that is not tangible, which is therefore subjective to an extent, or is, well, at least not not objectively there necessarily, in that, two people can have a shared experience, but it's not as often as you're going to have normal shared experiences. But even that, as we know from like witness testimony, even shared experiences, people see things differently. And so how shared are they? But we at least know that there is an event that was shared, right? Like a crime that was had, or in the case of a UFO sighting, a UFO that was sighted, whether the exact shape and colors and all of that match up. We know that the event is still the thing that two or more people are talking about. And that's really all we know, I guess, huh? About anything in life. The rest of it might just be made up. Who knows? Maybe we're all in trouble. But I wanted to focus on this guy because he seemed, of everyone in the class or the seminar series, I don't know if it was a class really, he seemed the most upfront and honest, and like outside of Tom Cheetham, who I think in some sense has a shot at understanding this, although he's already cut himself off from being able to by giving himself an excuse to like go experiment with stuff like a little kid, like I want the hallucinogens, I want the breath work, I want to do all this other stuff, so can't I put this off like everyone else? So in other words, there is something where like, I think you have to, in order to hear anything that I talk about on this show, you have to be vulnerable. And this man was vulnerable. And now I'm going to take advantage of that. No. And now I'm going to riff off of that, because I think a lot of people probably feel this way, especially about things like synchronicity. And like, if you are the type of person who does find meaning everywhere, that's important. I have to pay attention to that. How do you differentiate? Well, one question is, how do you differentiate, if you do at all, which you should, between like, your own wants and your own vanity versus, oh no, there's something important here that I must follow, or there's something being expressed here that's telling me I'm on the right path, that what I'm doing is correct. Do you differentiate? Or is it not even important at all? And he was asking, sort of like, I think, should he be ignoring these things in some way, or not placing a whole lot of stock into them? Like, he still finds meaning and sees the meaning, but should that be it? Because it becomes this, it becomes like LARPing, right? It's like live action role play. It's any one thing that you focus on in life, to the exclusion of other things, is going to put you out of balance, is going to, that's going to take over the whole picture of what life's about, or what spirituality is about. And so if you fancy yourself someone who is spiritual, and you fancy yourself someone who is looking for or is on the right spiritual path, synchronicities then, in that context, are going to be guiding you. They're going to, and you're going to be looking for, what's the next thing, what's the next sign for me to either continue on or not. Life becomes a game. And I think within the context of the universe, of time, where things are seemingly unfolding, and we can't know what the next thing is, but it'd be nice to get some hints on whether or not we're stumbling around blindly. But if there's like a scent in the air, can we follow that to the fridge or the garbage? If we hone our sniffer, can we find our way to the fridge, not the garbage? I think that's the way. That's the best analogy I've got for synchronicities. The problem is, what we're talking about is, how do you not be blind so that you don't need to rely on your nose and you can see the entirety of the room? And in that means that there is no being led around. So the sense of synchronicity then for someone who is awake like that is, certainly guideposts that you can follow. But I think you start to see them, or at least I have started to see them, I'll just say, as not the end-all, be-all, hidden hand guiding you toward what is right or what is right for you. But whatever your interest is, there's going to be the sense of that hidden hand. But it's not really a hand. It's not really someone else or some other intelligence doing this. It's just that, in certain ways, how the world works, we're blind to a lot of it. And when you're blind to a lot of it, especially when it comes interactive like that, it feels as though it's an other, and we hope higher. But if you really look at it, if you really just think like, okay, you could be going through life doing A, and all this sort of hidden hand synchronistic stuff lines up to sort of show you you're in the flow, man, you're in the right way. But if you were to give up that and you were to switch over to B, there'd be a period of time maybe where it's sort of chaotic or almost tricksterish, like you almost warding you away from doing that. But if you ignore it and you continue on with B, it's going to sort itself out, and then you'll be set up with synchronicities that tell you you're on the right path and blah, 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 blah. So there's almost like a hidden mechanical nature to whatever we're deeply focusing on. And maybe this is the element that's true about you create your own reality. It's not that you create your own reality, but it's like whatever you deeply focus on, some of that stuff may start coalescing around you. It may start being attracted to you, or as you are attracted to it in some way, and then you start to develop an innate ability to parse out the signal from the noise. The signal here being synchronicities, in the noise being just random events. And so that can be true for so-called good things in life and also evil things or bad things, right? It can be, anyone can experience synchronicities, in other words. And it can be for shallow things or deep things. So it's not really attached to any sense of rightness, correctness, or any of that in a greater sense of meaning and purpose. It's just simply like, oh, you're interested in this? Okay, well, how about this, and this? And then you have those things come to you as if by magic, and then you think like, oh, I must be on the right path. Someone's talking to me. See what I'm saying? So all of that is to say that is external meaning, so it's relative. I mean, anything that's in time, that's in measurement, that's externalized, is going to be relative. And that's, so when you look outside yourself for meaning, or when you look outside yourself to validate your sense of meaning, your inner sense of meaning, you're in the realm of relativity. And if it's relative, is it meaning? Is it true meaning, or is it just meaningful to you? And this is where we get confused, because it is meaningful to you. That's what synchronicities are. That's why you can look at your friend and go, what that person's claiming is a synchronicity is kind of BS-y. But it's harder to do for you, because for them, they may be narcissists, or they may be completely flighty, airheaded people who, every cloud is a face and it's talking to them. I mean, to you may be able to, that's the difference, right? You may be able to see faces in clouds. You may have that enough childhood imagination left in you, left in the tank, to look at clouds and be like, oh, look at that. That's a dragon. That's a person's face. That's a ladybug. Whatever it is, you can see that. And the person next to you may be so fantasy prone that they're like, yes, not only is that a dragon, but it's talking to me. And so, yeah, that's a little easier to be like, okay, they're just imagining things. I mean, you're just imagining things too, but there's a limit. You know? Um, I mean, they are both um, conjured by the self, and that's the problem. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't different depths to delusion, but at the end of the day, in terms of truth, delusion is delusion. So you're either delusional or you're not. The other way to put this, I guess, is to take it out of the realm of psychology, is one is either in timelessness or one is in time. And so, again, in time, you can find meaning in fits and starts that is personal externally, but all of that journeying has nothing to do with truth, has nothing to do with the timeless. It's all just a game. It's games that we play and that the universe delights in playing with us because we are, in fact, the universe. And the universe is, in fact, us. So, why not? And then he goes on to say that he wants the big lightning strike, the big transformational moment. He doesn't want to be doing these paths. And so how does he get to that place? And, again, you're talking to this guy, so what you're going to hear as an answer is, there is none. You can't. But that doesn't mean abandon what you're doing. That doesn't mean abandon all the spiritual search and all that, because that abandoning is still just a reaction. It's you in spiritual crisis, or feeling as though you're in spiritual crisis, and giving up. Not the see, this is where it gets tricky, and that's why I keep saying it's not you who gives up. It's, if you are listening to this and passively and not bouncing it off of other stuff, there is a chance that the brain, that the very body projecting you, relaxes and gives you up, sees the futility of you, and then you are gone. And in that moment, timelessness has a chance to be the case, has a chance to flower through the body. The body is time. The body projects a psychological construct, which is psychological time. And when that psychological time dies, while the body, which is still physical time, lives, another psychological thing happens. It's not psychological, but it's the self-aware aspect, the self-awareness of truth per se, which is timelessly the case, which is absolute, not relative. Absolute meaning, not relative meaning, because it is not measured against anything. It's not contained in memory. It's not being bounced off of anything. It just is. It's not absolute because it's a dictatorship or something. It's not absolute, you know what I mean? Like, it's not that absolutism. It's just absolute, meaning that it is whole. And it is always the case. It never wasn't the case. Truth is truth. However, the self-aware nature of truth can now be the self-aware nature of the body. This is the merging of timelessness in time. So if you, like our friend here, are living a life of finding meaning in synchronicities or personal meaning in your work or your art or whatever it is, and then you stumble upon a guy like me who slaps you across the face with, that ain't it. And you get a sense that, oh, right, he's on to me. If you're that person, obviously, when we live in reaction, we want to react with something. And so if your reaction isn't the defensiveness that is often the case with people, if it's an acceptance of this, then the reaction is going to be, well, then how do I change? Or what should I change to? Or should I drop it altogether? Should I stop doing what I'm doing? Stop being how I'm being? Stop acting the way I'm acting? And again, authentic action takes place when reaction ceases. So the reactor has to not be there. And again, the only way for that to authentically occur is for the body to stop projecting you. And even as I say it over and over and over again, it's hard to see because what clouds it is that you don't really believe you're a projection of your body. You believe that you are an autonomous being. Most likely, right? You most likely, maybe you believe you are a soul or have a soul, but you believe something about you is autonomous and that the body contains it or partially contains it, contains you. But you're going to shed this mortal coil someday and go off to like a heaven or a reincarnation or whatever it is you do. Roam the earth as a hungry ghost. I don't know. And so you want to be the greatest, most powerful, most meaningful version of you can be if you care at all about any of this stuff, obviously, right? So on you go with your sense of becoming, your sense of doing, and all because you don't want to see that you are a thought construct. You are thought. You are of time. You are psychological time. You are literally sort of an reactionary expression of brain cells and however the physics of the brain works. I'm no neurologist. However, if that weren't the case and you're like, no, yeah, I am just brain cells, even that's not enough. Like just changing your mind about what you are or just isn't the thing that does the trick. We're constantly running to the next thing, to the next safety net of a jumping off point for what should I do next? How can I climb this hierarchy, this spiritual hierarchy? And that's the reason that I have to sound like a broken record, because I can't move on until you move on. And there is no moving on. I mean that metaphorically. I mean, I can't, what else is there to talk about until, you see this so clearly that you're not there anymore. And then we don't need to talk about anything else. So there's that. But let's circle back here, to the point, which is if you see yourself in this, if you're someone who listens to these episodes or reads my books and you feel called out in some way, or you feel as though I've got your number, then don't worry about, and certainly don't ask me, what you should do next. What does it mean? Sit with the feeling. Ask yourself that. Why am I feeling this way? And it sounds like he understood. That's the great thing. It sounds like he was self-aware enough to figure out why it is that he felt the way he did. But then it doesn't matter that I've spent days saying there's nothing you can do about it. There's still this confusion about what that actually means, because then you think, oh, I should give up. And as I've just explained here, that's just another reaction. The giving up is the same as the embracing. These are all just the self running to the next denial of the fact that it is a projection of the body and it needs to die for truth to be the case. So just sit with it. If you feel however you feel, if it feels like a slap in the face, if it feels like shameful, if it feels like a relief, if it feels like, oh, wow, phew, somebody finally has figured me out. Whatever it is you feel, just sit with that feeling and just be that. Don't run from it. Don't overindulge it. Just feel it. And then ask yourself about you. Talk to you about you inwardly. Why are you feeling this way? Why were you acting this way? Why were you looking for synchronicities everywhere and finding meaning in everything? Why do you see everything as a metaphor? And if it's because you're an artist or a poet or something, well, why do you so over-identify with your creative endeavors that you think the world acts that way? Or is it that you believe that the world acts through, however we are? So whatever reality tunnel it is that you're driving down, that's how the world looks, and therefore that's how the world is. Well, why have you adopted that? Because that might not be the case. There might actually be the absolute knocking at your door. And how will you know if you're so busy trying to maneuver this reality tunnel and respect everyone else's reality tunnels or poo-poo them or whatever? What if instead of meditating to achieve some sort of silent moments, We just relax and be silence. Do you see the difference there? Because that was another thing that he talked about, was that he meditates, that he's had some kriyas, which are spontaneous movements, which for me is what I talk about when I talk about Kundalini and the meditation energy. But clearly what I'm talking about is the body actually comes alive. This other, will, which we can talk about another time, I've talked about before in this show, comes active when I am not. But what he described was like an energy moving up and down his backside. Are we talking about the same things? I don't think so. And I think other factors outside of Kundalini can make the body move or make energies move up and down or through the body. But, we just collapse it all into, Kundalini, it's a Kundalini awakening. It's like, okay. Nevertheless, he did say that he finds his silent moments through, again, meditation, through yoga, I think he said, and through doing art. But these aren't being silenced. These are being silenced. These are, being quieted in some way through concentration, through focus, through losing yourself in your expressing the imaginal, like a little kid losing himself in the clouds. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's something to be said for that, for sure. Right? Like, I'm not passing a judgment on any of this stuff. I'm just saying that this is not being silence. This is not the absolute. This is not truth for truth's sake. In these moments of silence, truth may come through as an other, right? As truths, as little bits of wisdom and little epiphanies and aha moments that come through. But it's not you as truth, a conscious, seemingly entity, the self-aware aspect of truth, being what was formerly you, because you're still there. You're just, quieter, preoccupied, enjoying what you're doing. And in the case of meditation and yoga and all of that, the enjoyment, insofar as there is any, I suppose, may derive from thinking it's getting you somewhere. And it may get you somewhere imaginal. Hey, like Henry Corbin, somewhere subconscious, somewhere in the human collective consciousness. It may get you somewhere else. But what we're talking about is nowhere else, no place, not a thought construct, not comprised of the past, the ever-living, ever-present now. That's you when you're not there. Not as a second-person experience of bits of wisdom, not as a third-person experience of a hidden hand. You. But saying that triggers the narcissist, the self, who wants to be that you, in spite of having to go away for that you to be the case. And just seeing this conundrum, seeing the whole of it, the totality of it, the movement of it, just seeing that fully, clearly, is the uprooting of the problem. Not doing anything about it, just seeing it, just understanding it, 100%, and understanding that that is you, and not running from it as a judgment, not embracing it as a teachable moment, just see it. The end.